Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And right now where I am, it is the morning of Saturday, August 10th, 2024. And it's my understanding that a couple days ago, the Criterion Collection on its website made an announcement, I think also across its social media channels and platforms. The Criterion Collection made an announcement with regard to a set, a multi-disc set, which the Criterion Collection plans to release later this year. And I'm going to go to the website directly and I'm going to see that it is scheduled for release, yes, November 19th, 2024, and this is a multi-disc Blu-ray set. And the name of the set is CC40. So this is a very interesting development. And before I get into my personal thoughts and comments and my initial reactions to this, let me now just refer to the website itself, the Criterion Collection website itself. Please, again, for those who might be interested in more information and more details, my strong recommendation is, among other places, you can check out the Criterion Collection website directly for more information. I don't have any inside knowledge about this. I'm referring only to the publicly available information, such as what is found on the website, which is here, and I quote here in terms of the Criterion description of it. I quote, CC40, so that's the name of the set, CC40, and it says on the site, I quote, "This monumental 40-film box set celebrates 40 years of the Criterion Collection by gathering an electrifying mix of classic and contemporary films by presenting them with all their special features and essays in a deluxe cloth-bound slip-cased edition. CC40's eclectic selection includes the releases most frequently chosen by the hundreds of filmmakers, actors, writers, and other movie-loving luminaries who have visited Criterion over the years, as documented in our popular Closet Picks video series. Neither a historical survey nor a top 40 compilation, this exciting, personal, unpredictable anthology reflects the cinematic joys and inspirations of the creative community that makes the Criterion Collection possible." Oh, that's interesting. So we have something which appears to be a collection of titles, and 40 titles from the looks of things. It is the Blu-ray format. And it is cloth bound in terms of the actual trimmings of the set itself. The size and dimensions look to be quite large. Again, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know what specifically the dimensions are, but we'll have to wait and see. But this is a very interesting development. Now, you can check out the titles themselves on the site. Let me just go through them really quickly here. I don't want to go into too much detail about each of the titles here, but just in terms of their titles, in English, we have, okay, the films in the set are 8½, Tokyo Story, All That Jazz, Bicycle Thieves, Repo Man, Naked, Jules and Jim, Being There, Weekend, this is the Godard film, Weekend, EE, The Night of the Hunter, Pickpocket, Sweet Smell of Success, On the Waterfront, Do the Right Thing, Ratcatcher, Sunday Bloody Sunday, Mirror, Barry Lyndon, Safe, Seconds, His Girl Friday, Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, Y Tu Mama Tambien, My Own Private Idaho, Love and Basketball, Night of the Living Dead, Ace in the Hole, 3 Women, The Red Shoes, okay, scrolling down here, Down by Law, La Ciénaga, Wanda, House, Sullivan's Travels, The Battle of Algiers, A Woman Under the Influence, Cleo from 5 to 7, Persona, and In the Mood for Love. Okay, so that's an interesting selection of titles. I would say, well, actually, let me just, before I continue with my own personal comments, let me say here too that it looks like we have digital restorations of all 40 films. hundreds of hours of supplemental features, alternate soundtracks and dub tracks, audio commentaries, extensive documentaries and making of programs, interviews with cast and crew, outtakes and deleted scenes, trailers and TV spots, and subtitle information. Okay, so far I'm reading from the site and the special features. So far this indicates to me that, again, all these titles we know have been or currently are released by the Criterion Collection in individual spine-numbered releases. But in this gathering, in this CC40 set, it looks like we have the same features will be carried over into their releases as they will be found in this set. So we'll have to wait and see if that's actually true, but it looks like that's what it sounds like. And again, according to the description, that's what it sounds like Criterion is doing here. But in addition to that, it looks like Criterion will also be including, and I quote here, a selection of Criterion Closet Picks videos and more, exclamation point. So it looks like we'll be having Criterion Closet Picks videos for the most part. Now, you know, Criterion Closet Picks videos are usually things that you can find online. I know the Criterion Collection has its own, say, YouTube channel, and you can watch the Criterion Closet Picks videos there. Also, you can find them, you know, elsewhere, I think, through the Criterion Collection's social media channels. So, but it's interesting to find them here to be made available in a kind of maybe compendium or collection of Criterion Picks videos for this set. Again, the set describes this, the reason for its sort of curated, the curation being based upon a survey or maybe the Criterion Collection team's regarding of the titles that were made by various filmmakers across the board in terms of the Criterion Collection's Closet Picks videos. So I'm not sure what that means in terms of how that survey was actually done. Did they actually count all the videos, or did they count all the titles across the entirety of all the videos that have been made, and they made a tally of which ones were the most popular, or was it a selection of those Picks videos? Again, I don't know what the actual say standards were in terms of the actual selection process, but it looks like it will be tied more or less to what the Closet Picks videos selections were, which are also in their own way a kind of reflection or celebration of the Criterion Collection itself as seen through the many filmmakers and artists and figures that have been featured in the Criterion Collection Closets Picks videos. So okay, so this is an interesting development, and more exclamation points. So that indicates to me that there will be more titles or more features along the way, but we'll have to wait and see. Okay, so with that, what does that mean, or how do I feel about this? So I'm kind of two minds when it comes to this announcement when I first heard about it. And this is a November, okay, we have to remember this is a November planned release. So as we know, Criterion usually has one major set, collector's set, a big set, at least one a year, sometimes two, but or more, but usually has one major box set a year. And usually it's a very exciting event, or it's always a very exciting event. And I think thus far we've had various filmmakers featured in the box sets that have been made in the past, very famously so, going back a few years to the Ingmar Bergman box set, which I think is now a legendary box set, the Agnes Varda box set, which also has, I think, similar dimensions in terms of legendary status among home media watching releases. And then most recently we have the Wong Kar-wai set, and I think most recently the Pasolini 101 set, which I really enjoyed, and I had the opportunity to speak about a little bit on this YouTube channel with a lot of respect and admiration with respect there too. And so now we have this set. So it is in that way a very exciting monumental achievement and a gathering of these films in this way. It's very exciting. I would say that I wish it could have been something, personally, I wish it could have been something that maybe could have been ushering in maybe a celebration of say, certain films that maybe aren't at least partially speaking, new to the collection. You know, for me personally, these are all films that are all currently existing in the Criterion Collection, and maybe apart from the Criterion Collection Closet Picks videos, it looks like we'll have all the features that are included on the Blu-ray set. This is a Blu-ray set, not a 4K set, and it looks like the restorations will, again, we'll have to wait and see, but it looks like the restorations and the supplements are going to be what we already currently have in their individual spine number releases. So in that way, we're not necessarily getting anything quote-unquote new. And so in that regard, I would say that maybe personally, on the one hand, I'm feeling a little bit underwhelmed by this announcement, and you know, I don't want to offend anyone who is very excited about this announcement, but if you're excited about this, please, that's completely okay. I'm very excited for you, and maybe my excitement level might rise as we get closer to the date itself. But okay, that's one side of things. I'm feeling, on the one hand, I wish it could have been something else. But on the other hand, I can see this as being a set that is seemingly maybe hearkening back to past releases of days gone by, and I'm thinking way back to the DVD days. Okay, so let's take a step back here. So we have to remember that we've had Criterion in the past several years, let's call it the current modern era of Criterion Collection releases, from around the Ingmar Bergman box set onwards. We've had some really, I think, great sets that have focused more or less on filmmakers. So the filmmaker-centric box set, which I think is, or the filmmaker or the director or the artist. So in many forms and shapes and sizes, and this goes all the way back to, for instance, like the signifying works of Marlon Riggs, or the Bruce Lee set, or the, as I mentioned before, Ingmar Bergman, or the Agnes Varda set, or the Wong Kar-wai set, or Pasolini set, etc. So we've had sets like this that have focused in on filmmakers or artists or directors, etc., which I think is a really exciting popular trend. But it's really interesting to remember that we've also had, back in the history in terms of Criterion's releases, we've had sets that have been a celebration of collections. And so this is how I regard the CC40 set, as being a celebration of collections. And so I would say that the best, maybe comparative point of the CC40 set is if those of you who remember the DVD days, you remember that this set, this is a DVD set back in the day. This is called 50 Years of Janus Films, Essential Art House. And what this is also cloth bound. And what this was is a collection of Janus Films films that were also titles that were released individually by the Criterion Collection, but there were some additional films that weren't made available in the individual spine numbered releases. So, but in any event, these were Janus films that were gathered in this huge DVD set with a huge sort of cloth-bound outer slipcase and then cloth-bound inner compartments, including a booklet, a hardbound booklet. This was a really huge deal, and it still is. And I think it's out of print, and it's become a kind of a collector's item of sorts. But this was really great because it really cataloged, in a lovely way, in a very, I think, easy-to-follow way, the Janus Films history of releases over the course of its wonderful, healthy, robust history. The quote-unquote art house films of the 1950s and beyond, which again form the backbone of what we can understand to be the physical media, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K releases of the Criterion Collection physical media catalog, which we now know and love today. So. And this also was cloth bound and the like, and it's heavy. It's really heavy, and it's nice. So I look at the CC40 set as being a kind of modern day form of a set that was like this. And this was not focusing in on a particular filmmaker per se, but this was focusing in on a kind of cataloging of Janus films over the years. Again, 50 years of Janus films. So I think that this is a good reference point to have when regarding perhaps or considering anyway the CC40 set. which is planned. So in that, and also the CC40 set, it indicates it's indicated by the Criterion Collection. It's cloth bound, and this is also cloth bound as well. So it's nice. We haven't had, I think, any cloth bound. We haven't had any cloth-bound releases in a while. I think the other cloth-bound release that was very popular was, just to round out the conversation, I think, if you remember, this is the Kurosawa AK100 set. This is also a DVD set. This is also cloth-bound. It has a nice cloth feel to it. So it's nice, therefore, to return to the cloth-bound points. Cloth-bound sets are always welcome. And it's nice to see that back in the Criterion Collection physical media fold. It looks like that's what it's planned anyway. So, so in that way, it seems to be harkening back to those sorts of sets, and even more specifically, the 50 Years of Janus Films DVD set, which I remarked upon earlier. So, in that way, I'm very excited. It's like a my feelings are somewhat similar to whenever I hear about a Criterion Collection release of a previous Laserdisc title, and Criterion now is releasing a title that used to be a Laserdisc, and now it's going to be given a new Blu-ray or 4K format, etc. So that it's a similar type of excitement that I have. So in that way, I'm very excited. But again, just a few points that maybe temper or maybe dampen my excitement would be, first of all, again, I should point out that the CC40 set doesn't, according to its website information, it doesn't appear to be having any titles beyond the current, say, individual releases that it has. So all 40 titles, as I mentioned, seem to be titles that already currently exist in the Criterion Collection. So that's something to consider. And that's one thing that maybe might slightly diminish my excitement level somewhat. I should point out that this set actually had, for the most part, it had titles that had been, or that have individual spine number releases in the Criterion Collection. But the interesting thing about this was there are some titles and some features that you could not find except in this set, at least in the Criterion Collection or Janus Films DVD releases. And so that's always very exciting to me when you have releases or sets like this where you have some extra goodies, just to give it a little bit of maybe more, maybe there's that extra reason for people who already have the titles to want to consider the set. So Janus Films releases, the DVD releases back in the day, were really good about that. They for the most part, you'd have 80 or 90% of the titles in those Janus Films DVD sets, such as, for instance, you have these other sets here, the Essential Art House box sets. There had 5 volumes of these, and you had most of the titles already existing in individual spine number releases, but occasionally you had a title that didn't have any individual release except through these sets. So that made the getting the sets a little bit more enticing for people who already had the individual releases. So that there was a kind of physical media collector thrill, for lack of a better phrase, which I don't see in those terms anyway. I don't see, or I don't recognize when I look at the announcement or look at the when I look at the description on the website. So that's one thing that might dampen my excitement level somewhat with respect to this. But again, we'll have to wait and see when it comes to that. Also, I should keep in mind too that this is Blu-ray. This is not engaging in the 4K format. So this might affect some people's or some consumers' views of whether or not to get this set. I know there's a viewpoint where maybe 4K would have been the more preferable format over Blu-ray. So if you feel that way, then maybe this might be affecting how you regard this announcement. For me personally, I have no issue in terms of the Blu-ray format over the 4K format, especially when considering the price. So I'm okay with the Blu-ray format. But again, that's something to keep in mind. This is a set that's only available through the Blu-ray format, at least according to the information now available on the website. That might change over time. Again, I don't know, but according to now, it looks like it's Blu-ray only. Tied to the price, that's what I said. So then that's the next thing. According to this, the price is The suggested retail price is what, $799.95, and it's marked down already on the Criterion website to $639.96. So that's a lot of money. Even as it's marked down on the Criterion site, $639.96, $640. That's a lot of money. For 40 titles, plus a little bit of extra, but if you break it down in terms of $640 over 40 titles, so gosh, yeah, that is a lot of money. But you know, if you break it down over 40 titles, it probably, if you break it down, right, $640 over 40 titles, that comes down to I want to say $16, I hope. So $16 per title. If you think about it in that way, that seems, and that's based upon the markdown price on the Criterion website currently standing, which could get further marked down if you think about the set being made available in, say, a 50% off sale, etc. So you'd be even further marked down. But according to the price now, you'd have, based upon the $640 price point, 40 titles, or you'd have what, $16 per title. And so if you think about it in those terms, and I'm talking about the Blu-ray, if you think about it in those terms, then it might seem like a bargain, because otherwise you'd have Blu-ray titles that are, you know, going for $20 or more. So you can think about it in that way. Okay, so that might be an intriguing enticement point. And also, these 40 titles, again, the site describes them as not being a kind of historical survey, but being more or less tied to the Criterion Collection closet picks and the more popular titles that were chosen. But that, I think, is a good indication, a good place to go in terms of, say, starting points in the Criterion Collection. So in that way, this set could be, in many ways, a type of introduction to people who might be interested in the Criterion Collection, an introduction to people who don't know the Criterion Collection yet, but are curious, or maybe are interested in knowing more about the cinema that the Criterion Collection is representing and offering. So in many ways, this could be a good gift for people who are wanting to start their cinema journeys in the Criterion Collection way, but not knowing where to begin. Well, here we have a set which, in many ways, could be regarded as being a film studies 101 set, which in that capacity, I think it's a very exciting set. You know, I could consider this as being a gift for someone who might maybe not know some of the titles of world cinema, but are curious and maybe are interested in knowing more about them. Well, here you have a set. It's a one-stop shop, as it were, and here you go, and it's in this cloth-bound coffee table book edition. So, so in that way, it seems like a very exciting proposition. But even in those terms, even as a set which could be regarded as being a set for maybe cinema lovers who are just starting out in terms of their Criterion Collection journey, even for those potential customers, it does seem like a pretty hefty price point. You know, I mean, you break it down, it seems like you get a bargain per title. But again, taking a step back, $640 or $800 does still seem like a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It doesn't seem like a lot. It is a lot of money. So, you know, on the one hand, it might seem like a good beginner set. But at the same time, if you think about the proposition of a beginner set, you know, beginner sets, maybe the temptation to want to start a beginner set may be made even stronger if the price point were more, say, reasonably priced, or not reasonably priced, but if it were cheaper in price. You know, if I'm starting something new, if I'm starting a new hobby, and I want to have a starter pack, I'm more tempted to get the starter pack as someone who's not experienced in that hobby yet. I'm more tempted to get the starter pack if the price, to my eyes, were something that I could manage reasonably in terms of my own budget. Now, I don't know if $640 for a quote-unquote starter pack, looking at the CC40 set like this, might be something that would be enticing for the first-time Criterion Collection viewer. Again, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But You know, it's that kind of proposition. So let me look at it through those lenses. So my own personal viewpoint, but then also from the starter, the Criterion Collection for beginners type of approach. But then maybe also just to end the conversation here, I could also look at the set as it standing on its own terms. Again, its own formation of a celebration of the Criterion Collection as it stands over the course of the 40 years. So I can look at it in those terms, and I can see it as being yet another opportunity to celebrate the Criterion Collection. In that way, it's very exciting indeed. But even in that regard, I must say that, you know, it says that the Criterion Collection's CC40 set is not meant to be a historical journey through the Criterion Collection, but it's meant to be tied to the Criterion Collection Closet Picks videos. But I mean, I think the Closet Picks videos, I think, are really fun and really enjoyable. Don't get me wrong. I think one of my favorite ones of recent note is the one with Koji Yakusho, or Yakusho Koji. He stars in, you know, among other films, Perfect Days and Cure. And there's a moment where he says it in Japanese, but it's subtitled in English, and he picks Cure, the Kiyoshi Kurosawa film, and he says, you know, this is Cure, and I paraphrase, he says, this is Cure, this is a masterpiece, I'm in it, it's a master. Oh, I love that, that's so great, and he's right, he's absolutely right. But in any event, yeah, so the Closet Picks videos are a lot of fun, they're really great. The Barry Jenkins one, I love the one, he's trying to fill his bag with as many titles as possible. It's wonderful. But so they're really wonderful. And so this set, the selection, the curation is basically tied to the titles that were mentioned most frequently in those Closet Picks videos, which I think is a wonderful basis for that. That being said, it would have also been nice, I think, to have used this opportunity to really go into the history of the Criterion Collection. It says this is not meant to be a historical, say, journey through the Criterion Collection. I would have loved that, actually. Or a top 40 compilation. Actually, I would have loved that. I would have really enjoyed. Maybe it would have been. Maybe Criterion can consider having a set that is actually a set that is going through the history of the Criterion Collection, and maybe picking out those quote-unquote standout releases based on, say, sales figures, or based on critical regard or acclaim, or based upon, say, the linkages with the development of the DVD era and the Laserdisc era into the Blu-ray and then the 4K era. I think a set like that would be absolutely marvelous, you know, even tying back to a history of the Laserdiscs, and maybe having standout titles of the Laserdiscs beginning with Citizen Kane, etc., and then maybe going into the early DVD days, and then the links between Janus Films, Criterion, the Voyager Company. It's a rich history, which I think, and from the viewpoint of the Criterion Collection, you know, having a definitive history of the Criterion Collection in a set, and with titles, 40 titles, 50 titles, who knows, 100 titles, I think that would be great. And then maybe you could have titles that are individually spine-numbered releases as well, plus some goodies, some extra titles that you wouldn't be able to find anywhere else. And remember, Criterion was really good about that, which made the enticement for those box sets back in the day all the more enticing, I think. So I think that would be a great idea. Actually, I really think that would be great. So, you know, Criterion, if you're listening, I don't know if you are. If not, that's completely okay. But anyone who might be listening, if there is room for consideration of a set like that, a history of the Criterion Collection, maybe top and also favorites or best-selling titles or something, or landmark moments of the Criterion Collection history, going all the way back to the Laserdisc era and before, if you're thinking about Janus Films' theatrical releases. That, I think, would be utterly stellar. I would love a set like that. So, you know, with that being said, I, again, will turn to the CC40 set. And again, with my certain excitement levels being somewhat tempered, or somewhat maybe having a kind of wait-and-see type of attitude approach, as I acknowledge here, I will look forward to this. Now, I don't know if I can afford this upon first release here. I'm going to have to try to save my money here, because it is a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but I'll have to consider how I can save enough money between now and November, or maybe afterwards, so I can afford this. So it is a bit of a stretch of my own personal spending cash in my own wallet. So, but we'll have to wait and see about that. Again, it's something that I think it's very exciting on the one hand, but I think for me personally, I would have liked to have seen something a little bit more. But I do acknowledge that this is a great opportunity once again to celebrate the Criterion Collection in all its shapes and forms. And I also understand too that the Criterion Collection is of course not something that is just for me and my own personal enjoyment. It's for the enjoyment of everyone. It's for the enjoyment of many. And so I understand that this set is something that is regarded very with high degrees of anticipation in some circles. And if you feel that way, I'm so happy for you. This is really wonderful. And maybe you don't have any of these titles yet, or maybe you are wanting to get these titles. Maybe you wanted to start Criterion physical media collecting, but you don't know where to begin. This might be a great place to go. Again, it's also harkening back to the old school cloth-bound releases of the day, the Janus Films 50 year set, the AK 100 set, etc. So it has a kind of old school feel to it, which in terms of physical media collecting, which I also very much admire. So there it is. These are my initial thoughts and comments. So I'm kind of all over the place. So I apologize because I'm a bit scatterbrained. I always am, I suppose, but in particular right now because I've just returned from a trip overseas and I'm still jet lagged. So I'm kind of all over the place. So I apologize. Also, I should say that maybe my thoughts and comments might change over the course of the period between now and say the release of the set. So please allow me some room for maybe changing my view here and there if I feel that way. But again, these are my initial thoughts and reactions after hearing the news a couple days ago. So I've just heard the news, so and I don't have anything tangible. I'm just looking at what I see online. But with that being said, my dear friends, how do you feel? Are you do you have any own thoughts and comments? Please feel free to let me know in the comment section of the YouTube channel video here below. But above all else, my dear friends, above all else, if you're still here watching this video, thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you for having an interest in what it is I might have to say about the topic. And most importantly, I very much hope that you continue to be happy and healthy and well, and that you continue to watch a lot of great movies. And so please have a wonderful rest of the day, have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you very soon. So thank you and cheers.